Spot World is at, but I'm gonna keep this intro short. 1, I'm a huge NBA fan if you didn't know. Secondly, history is so important. So in this series, we're gonna be looking at everything you need to know from every year of NBA, starting with the 1957 to 58 season. Let's get into some quick facts. This season marked the 12th season of the NBA. The season began on October 24th, 1957 and ended on March 22nd, 1958. The league expanded to 8 teams, adding the Detroit Pistons and the Syracuse Nationals. The NBA took giant strides in cementing its big league image when the Fort Wayne Pistons moved to Detroit and the Rochester Royals moved to Cincinnati. Just 3 years earlier, half the NBA teams were based in metropolitan areas with less than 1 million people. Now only Syracuse was in that category. The league introduced a new rule that limited teams to 6 personal fouls per player instead of the previous 8. On March 12, 1958, in the last game of the 1957-58 NBA regular season, Cincinnati Royals player Maurice Stokes was knocked unconscious after he drove to the basket, drew contact, and struck his head as he fell to the court. He was revived with smelling salts and returned to the game. 3 days later, after recording 12 points and 15 rebounds in an opening round playoff game against the Detroit Pistons, he became ill on the team's flight back to Cincinnati. Stokes later suffered a seizure and was left permanently paralyzed. He was diagnosed with post-traumatic encephalopathy, a brain injury that damaged his motor control center. During the years that followed, Stokes would be supported and cared for by his lifelong friend and teammate Jack Twyman, who became Stokes' legal guardian. Although permanently paralyzed, Stokes was mentally alert and communicated by blinking his eyes. He adopted a grueling physical therapy regimen that eventually allowed him limited physical movement, and he eventually regained limited speaking ability. In the 2012-2013 season, the Twyman-Stokes Teammate of the Year award was introduced. Named after the 2 lifelong teammates, recognizes the league's ideal teammate who exemplifies selfless play and commitment and dedication to their team. Let's take it to the standings of this season. Starting off with the East, we have previous season MVP Bob Cousy and the MVP of this season, Bill Russell, who led the Celtics to a league best 49-23 record. The second seed, Syracuse Nationals, with a 41-31 record. The Philadelphia Warriors clinched the third seed with a 37-35 record. The New York Knicks failed to clinch a playoff spot, finishing 4th in the East with a record of 35-37. In the West, we had the St. Louis Hawks, who were led by Bob Petit, finishing with a 41-31 record, followed by the Detroit Pistons and the Cincinnati Royals, both with 33 wins and 39 losses. And lastly, the Minneapolis Lakers finished with a league worst 19 wins and 53 losses, marking the first losing season in the franchise's history. I find it extremely crazy that back in the 50s, there were only 8 teams. Nowadays, we have 30, so it's like, really, like, what does it take to get top 3? Like, just go out there and ball. And speaking of that, we gotta talk about the season leaders, the guys that were really balling out. And that brings us to our scoring champion of the 1957-1958 NBA season, George Yardley of the Detroit Pistons. Averaging 27.8 points per game, Yardley was the first player in NBA history to score 2,000 points in the season. He finished with 2,001. Leading the league in rebounds is that man himself, Bill Russell of the Celtics. This was his second year in the league, and he averaged 22.7 rebounds. And leading the league in dimes, assists per game, we have Bob Cousy of the Boston Celtics at 7.1. It's important to note that blocks, steals, and turnovers were not officially recorded as stats during the season. Let's talk about the AllStar Game real quick. The AllStar Game was played on January 21st, 1958 at the Kell Auditorium in St. Louis, Missouri. The East defeated the West 130-118, with Bob Petit being named the game's MVP. In the first of 3 AllStar Games held in St. Louis, a hometown star took home the MVP honors. Bob Petit became the first player from a losing team to win the All-Star Game MVP after getting 28 points and 26 rebounds. This was the first All-Star Game in NBA history in which both teams topped 100 points. The Eastern Conference All-Stars were Bob Cousy, Bill Russell, and Bill Sharman off the Boston Celtics, Willie Knowles, Richie Guerin, and Kenny Sears off the New York Knicks, Dolph Schayes and Larry Costello of the Syracuse Nationals, and Paul Arzin and Neil Johnson of the Philadelphia Warriors. Yo, I'm gonna keep it a buck. If I'm saying any names wrong right now, just know, like, this is way before my time. I promise, once we make it to Current day, I know everybody's name. Yo, hit a like real quick if you're here, by the way. Yo, drop a comment. What y'all think about this season so far? Like, were y'all tapped into this? Is this bringing back some memories? Or y'all new school just finding about this? Let me know. I need to know. The Western Conference stars were Bob Petit and Cliff Hagan of the St. Louis Hawks, Maurice Stokes and Jack Twyman of the Cincinnati Royals, Slater Martin, Dick Garmaker, and Larry Faust of the Minneapolis Lakers, and George Yardley, Dick McGuire, and Gene Shue of the Detroit Pistons. Coaching the Western Conference was Alex Hannum. Coaching the Eastern Conference was Red Auerbach. Alright, so let's get into the 1957-58 NBA season awards. The MVP of the year was Bill Russell of the Celtics, with a stat line of 16.6 points, 2.9 assists, and 22.7 rebounds. Like I said before, blocks weren't a stat yet, but we can imagine how many blocks a game Bill Russell was getting. The Rookie of the Year was Woody Sauldsberry of the Philadelphia Warriors, averaging 12.8 points, 0.8 assists, and 10.3 rebounds. Next, we have the All-NBA First Team, Bob Petit of the St. Louis Hawks, averaging 24.6 points, 2.2 assists, and 17.4 rebounds. George Yardley of the Detroit Pistons, averaging 27.8 points, 1.3 assists, and 10.7 rebounds. Bill Sharman of the Boston Celtics, averaging 22.3 points, 2.7 assists, and 4 rebounds. Bob Cousy of the Boston Celtics, averaging 18 points per game, 7.1 assists per game, and 5 rebounds a game. And Dolph Schayes of the Syracuse Nationals, averaging 24.9 points, 3.1 assists, and 14.2 rebounds per game. On the All-NBA second team, we had Cliff Hagan of the St. Louis Hawks, averaging 19.9 points, 2.5 assists, and 10.1 rebounds per game. Tom Gola of the Philadelphia Warriors, averaging 13.8 points, 5.5 assists, and 10.8 rebounds per game. Bill Russell of the Boston Celtics, again, averaging 16.6 points, 2.9 assists, and 22.7 rebounds. Slater Martin of the St. Louis Hawks, averaging 12 points per game, 3.6 assists a game, and 3.8 rebounds a game. And Maurice Stokes of the Cincinnati Royals, averaging 16.9 points a game, 6.4 assists, and 17.3 rebounds per game. Let's take a look at what the playoffs of the 1957-58 NBA season was looking like. The playoffs consisted of the top 3 teams from the Eastern and Western Division. In round 1, the Eastern Division semifinals featured the 3-seed Philadelphia Warriors beating the 2-seed Syracuse Nationals 2-1. The Western Division semifinals featured the 2-seed Detroit Pistons sweeping the Cincinnati Royals 2-0. In round 2 of the playoffs, we had the Eastern Division Finals, ending with the 1-seed Boston Celtics sending the Warriors home 4-1. The Western Conference ended similarly, with the 1-seed St. Louis Hawks defeating the Pistons 4-1. And finally, we get to the finals, the main event of the season, where we had the Boston Celtics facing off against the St. Louis Hawks. The Hawks were just coming off a Game 7 loss to the Celtics in prior year's season. In Game 1, the Hawks upset the Celtics 104-102 at the Boston Garden. Boston took Game 2 with a big 136-112 win. Bill Russell severely sprained his ankle in Game 3, and the Hawks managed to capitalize and win 111-108. Even without Russell, the Celtics managed to even the series, winning Game 4 109-98. However, the Hawks took Game 5 in Boston, a clincher, 102-100. The Hawks smelled blood in Game 6, and led by Bob Petit's 50-point performance, which happened to be a finals record at the time, including 18 of the Hawks' final 21 points, they were able to defeat the Boston Celtics 4-2 in the NBA Finals. A fun fact, the Hawks were the last non-integrated team to win an NBA title. Every NBA champion since has had at least one black player. Spa World, that's wraps on the 1957-58 season. I'm gonna be dropping these videos consistently on Sundays and Thursdays. Yo, stay tuned for the 1958-59 NBA season. If you made it this far, hit that like button. If you're new, hit that sub button. I'll catch you guys next video.